A strip of dark brown parchment rests beneath low museum light, its cracked surface carrying lines of ancient ink that have survived centuries of heat, dust, and careful hands. Every crease across the animal skin marks another generation that chose to preserve these words instead of letting them disappear. The edges are worn, the fibers are dry, yet the writing remains clear enough to remind you that some texts refuse to vanish, no matter how many centuries pass around them. Among the manuscripts connected with the Book of Enoch, fragments discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls and later Ethiopian copies have kept one question alive. What did the earliest readers believe these pages were trying to reveal? That question has never completely gone away. It simply waited for another generation, willing to examine the evidence instead of repeating assumptions. For centuries, the Book of Enoch stood outside the biblical canon, accepted by most Jewish and Christian traditions, even while parts of it continued to circulate in different communities. The Council of Laodicea in the 4th century helped shape which books would be publicly read in many churches, while later traditions continued narrowing the accepted canon. The result was simple. Most people never encountered Enoch at all. The text did not completely disappear. It simply became unfamiliar to much of the world. Then, archaeology changed the conversation. In the 20th century, excavations near Qumran uncovered Aramaic fragments of Enoch among the Dead Sea Scrolls, demonstrating that the work was already respected centuries before the birth of Jesus. That discovery forced historians to ask new questions. A book many assumed belonged only to later tradition was now standing inside one of the most important manuscript discoveries in history. Suddenly, Enoch was no longer a forgotten curiosity. It became part of a much larger conversation about the beliefs, expectations, and worldview of the ancient world. At the center of that conversation is one remarkable claim. The Book of Enoch describes humanity as carrying the lasting consequences of events that began long before recorded civilizations rose across the earth. Throughout this documentary, we will examine what the text actually says, how ancient manuscripts preserved it, why it remained influential despite later exclusion from most biblical canons, and how its descriptions continue to spark debate among historians, biblical scholars, and readers alike. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text says, what surviving manuscripts reveal, and why this ancient work continues attracting attention after thousands of years. If ancient manuscripts and forgotten biblical traditions fascinate you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed from Scripture and history. But here's what makes this stranger. The Book of Enoch never presents itself as isolated revelation. Instead, it repeatedly connects heavenly events with ordinary human existence, suggesting that the visible world cannot be understood without considering realities beyond immediate observation. Whether one accepts those descriptions literally, symbolically, or somewhere in between, the influence of the text is undeniable. Its language echoes through later Jewish writings, appears in early Christian discussions, and even finds a direct quotation in the New Testament epistle of Jude. That alone makes the Book of Enoch impossible to dismiss as an obscure relic. Before we examine its most controversial passages, we first have to understand where the surviving manuscripts came from, how they reached the modern world, and why these fragile pages continue challenging assumptions that have endured for centuries. The surviving manuscripts begin to tell a larger picture long before you reach the passages that made the Book of Enoch famous. Fragments recovered from the caves near Qumran confirm that multiple copies of the text were circulating among Jewish communities during the Second Temple period. Those discoveries changed scholarly discussion because they demonstrated that Enoch was not a late invention, but a work that had already earned significant attention centuries before the New Testament was written. Complete versions survived primarily in the ancient Ethiopian tradition, preserved in the Ge'ez language after other versions gradually disappeared. Together, these manuscripts allow historians to reconstruct much of the original composition while comparing differences between surviving copies. And this is where it gets disturbing. The opening sections of Enoch present a world that appears ordered on the surface while describing unseen events unfolding behind ordinary human history. The text does not begin with kings or battles. It begins with a declaration that judgment reaches every part of creation and that hidden actions eventually become visible. What we're looking at breaks into 5 major parts. The first, commonly identified as chapters 1 through 36, introduces the Watchers, heavenly beings who abandon their appointed place and interfere with human affairs. According to the text, their actions corrupt knowledge, spread violence, and disrupt the order that had existed since creation. The second section, chapters 37 through 71, contains a series of visions centered on a coming figure who will judge both earthly rulers and rebellious spiritual powers. The third division, chapters 72 through 82, shifts dramatically in tone, describing the movements of the sun, moon, seasons, and calendar, with remarkable attention to order and repetition. The fourth section, chapters 83 through 90, presents symbolic dream visions that summarize history through vivid imagery rather than direct historical narrative. Finally, chapters 91 through 108 return to instruction, contrasting the destinies of those who pursue justice with those who reject it. Read together. These sections reveal a consistent pattern rather than isolated themes. Human corruption is never presented as an accident. Instead, it develops through a chain of choices that begin with rebellion, spread through society, and eventually reshape entire generations. That progression becomes especially important because Enoch repeatedly connects moral decline with the misuse of knowledge. Certain forms of instruction are portrayed as beneficial, while others become destructive when separated from wisdom and responsibility. Readers have debated these passages for centuries, asking whether they should be understood literally, symbolically, or as theological reflections on the origins of violence and injustice. Whatever conclusion one reaches, the structure of the book remains deliberate. Each section builds upon the previous one, moving from heavenly rebellion to earthly consequences before pointing toward ultimate accountability. Rather than standing as disconnected visions, the chapters form a continuous narrative that explains why the world appears fractured and why restoration, in the text's own framework, requires more than political reform or human effort alone. That careful progression is one reason the Book of Enoch continues to attract historians, theologians, and readers who want to understand the intellectual and religious landscape of the ancient world. As the Book of Enoch moves beyond its opening visions, the focus shifts from the rebellion of the Watchers to the consequences that continue unfolding across the generations. The text argues that corruption does not remain confined to a single moment in history. Instead, it spreads outward, influencing societies, rulers, and even the way human beings understand themselves. This transition is important because Enoch consistently presents moral decline as something that grows over time rather than appearing all at once. The actions described in the earliest chapters become the foundation for everything that follows. According to the narrative, forbidden knowledge is not simply information. It is knowledge separated from wisdom, responsibility, and reverence for God. The Watchers are said to teach humanity skills involving warfare, weapon making, metalworking, cosmetics, enchantments, astrology, and various secret arts. Some of these subjects appear harmless when viewed individually. Others clearly carry destructive potential. Yet the point the text emphasizes is not that knowledge itself is evil. Instead, it argues that knowledge placed into human hands without moral restraint becomes a force capable of reshaping entire civilizations. This theme appears repeatedly throughout the book. Every new generation inherits both the achievements and the failures of those who came before it. Violence expands. Pride increases. Justice becomes more difficult to recognize. The earth itself is described as suffering under the weight of human corruption, a powerful image that reflects the ancient belief that creation and humanity remain deeply connected. Enoch then presents a series of journeys through symbolic landscapes where mountains, rivers, deserts, and heavenly chambers serve as visible reminders of invisible realities. These visions are not written like ordinary travel accounts. Instead, they function as carefully structured revelations in which physical locations represent spiritual truths about judgment, mercy, and accountability. Throughout these journeys, angels guide Enoch from one scene to another, explaining what he sees without allowing him to alter the events before him. He is consistently portrayed as an observer rather than a participant. That distinction matters because the authority of the text rests upon witnessing rather than personal power. Enoch records what is shown to him instead of claiming ownership over the message itself. One of the most striking features of these visions is the repeated emphasis on order. The movements of heavenly bodies, the boundaries established for creation, and the appointed times for judgment all operate according to fixed patterns established by God. Human beings may ignore those patterns, but the text insists they cannot change them. This contrast between divine order and human disorder becomes one of the central ideas running throughout the entire book. Even when injustice appears dominant, Enoch repeatedly assures the reader that history is moving toward accountability rather than chaos. That expectation would later influence other Jewish writings and help shape the worldview of many communities living during the Second Temple period. It also explains why the Book of Enoch remained influential long after many copies disappeared. Readers found in its pages an explanation for why evil persists, why justice often seems delayed, and why history, despite every appearance to the contrary, remains under the authority of a sovereign creator. Rather than offering easy answers, the text invites careful reflection on the relationship between knowledge, responsibility, judgment, and hope, themes that continue to resonate whenever ancient manuscripts are studied with close attention. The central message grows even more focused as the Book of Enoch turns its attention from the origins of corruption to the certainty of accountability. Throughout these chapters, Enoch repeatedly describes a future in which every hidden action is brought into the light. Nothing remains permanently concealed. Kings, rulers, judges, and ordinary people all stand under the same standard. The text presents justice as something that may appear delayed but never abandoned. This expectation becomes one of the strongest themes running through the entire work. Enoch does not describe history as a random chain of events driven by chance alone. Instead, every generation is portrayed as moving toward a fixed moment when truth replaces deception and every choice receives its proper weight. Among the most discussed sections are the visions concerning the figure often translated as the Son of Man or the Chosen One. These passages describe an individual who exists by God's appointment and who ultimately exercises righteous judgment over both humanity and rebellious spiritual powers. Because similar language appears later in Jewish and Christian writings, historians have spent decades examining the relationship between these passages and later theological developments. While opinions differ regarding their precise dating and interpretation, the themes remain remarkably consistent throughout the surviving manuscripts. Justice belongs to God. Human authority is temporary. Pride eventually collapses under its own weight. Those who appear powerful for a season are reminded that lasting authority does not come from wealth, armies, or political influence. It comes from righteousness. Enoch also returns repeatedly to the idea that creation itself reflects divine order. The movements of the sun, moon, stars, seasons, winds, and rain are described as operating according to laws established from the beginning. Unlike humanity, the heavens never abandon their appointed paths. This contrast serves as a quiet but powerful lesson. Creation obeys. Humanity chooses whether to obey. That choice shapes the future of individuals and nations alike. Another remarkable feature of these chapters is their consistent concern for the oppressed. The text repeatedly speaks of those who suffer under injustice, promising that their cries are neither ignored nor forgotten. In a world where earthly courts often failed, Enoch presents a higher court that cannot be corrupted. This message likely explains why the book remained meaningful for communities experiencing persecution and uncertainty. It offered hope without denying the reality of suffering. It acknowledged evil while insisting that evil would not have the final word. At the same time, the warnings directed toward the powerful remain equally direct. Wealth without justice, authority without humility, and knowledge without wisdom all become temporary achievements destined to fade. According to Enoch, no position is secure if it stands apart from righteousness. As these visions continue, the reader begins to see that the Book of Enoch is not simply concerned with extraordinary beings or ancient events before the flood. Its deeper concern is the moral condition of humanity itself. The earliest rebellion becomes a mirror reflecting the choices made by every generation that follows. Whether expressed through violence, corruption, pride, or the misuse of knowledge, the same pattern repeats until people return to the order established by God. That enduring focus on responsibility, justice, and ultimate accountability is one of the reasons the Book of Enoch continues to be studied, debated, and discussed thousands of years after its words were first committed to parchment. As the final sections of the Book of Enoch unfold, the narrative becomes less concerned with describing extraordinary visions and more focused on explaining what those visions mean for humanity. Enoch repeatedly returns to the contrast between two paths that every generation must choose. One path is marked by pride, violence, dishonesty, and the pursuit of power without wisdom. The other is defined by faithfulness, justice, humility, and confidence that God's purposes will ultimately prevail. The text insists that these two paths do not simply shape individual lives. They shape the destiny of entire nations. This emphasis gives the closing chapters a practical character that distinguishes them from the earlier visionary material. Rather than introducing entirely new revelations, they gather together the themes already established throughout the book and present them as a unified message. Enoch speaks of future generations as though he is addressing readers far beyond his own lifetime. His warnings are directed toward people who become comfortable with corruption because it appears normal. He describes societies where truth is exchanged for convenience, where wealth becomes the measure of success, and where justice is delayed by those who benefit from injustice. These observations have caused many readers across different centuries to feel that the text speaks directly to their own time. Yet the book never suggests that moral decline represents the end of the story. Instead, it repeatedly points toward restoration. According to Enoch, the apparent triumph of evil is temporary because history remains under divine authority, even when that authority is not immediately visible. The righteous may experience hardship, but they are encouraged to remain steadfast because the final outcome has already been determined by God. This confidence becomes one of the defining characteristics of the book. Hope is never presented as wishful thinking. It is presented as trust, grounded in the character of the Creator, who governs both heaven and earth. The closing exhortations also encourage careful attention to wisdom. Genuine wisdom, according to Enoch, begins with reverence for God rather than fascination with hidden knowledge alone. Throughout the book, forbidden knowledge brought destruction because it was pursued without obedience. In contrast, true understanding leads to humility, gratitude, and faithful living. This distinction remains essential for interpreting the entire work. The Book of Enoch does not celebrate secret information for its own sake. It consistently evaluates knowledge according to the fruit it produces. If knowledge encourages violence, arrogance, or rebellion, it leads toward judgment. If it encourages righteousness, compassion, and reverence, it reflects the order established by God from the beginning. This perspective ties together the earliest chapters concerning the Watchers with the final instructions directed toward future generations. Every section contributes to the same overarching message. Humanity flourishes only when it lives in harmony with the Creator's design. That is why the book ends not with despair, but with expectation. Darkness may appear powerful for a season, but it does not possess the final word. Justice will come. Truth will be revealed. The faithful will not be forgotten. For thousands of years, these concluding themes have continued to attract readers, historians, and biblical scholars alike because they address questions that remain deeply relevant. Questions about justice, suffering, responsibility, hope, and the enduring conviction that history ultimately moves toward the fulfillment of God's righteous purposes. The journey that began with a single weathered sheet of parchment ends by returning to that same fragile manuscript, resting quietly beneath protective glass, while generations continue searching its faded lines for answers. The ink has grown lighter, the edges have become more brittle, yet the questions preserved within those ancient pages remain remarkably alive. The Book of Enoch has endured an extraordinary history. It was copied by ancient scribes, preserved within the Ethiopian Christian tradition, partially recovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, translated into modern languages, and examined by historians, archaeologists, linguists, and biblical scholars from around the world. Each discovery has added another piece to the larger picture, helping researchers understand the intellectual and spiritual world that shaped one of history's most fascinating ancient writings. While debates continue over its authorship, composition, and theological significance, one fact is beyond dispute. The Book of Enoch occupied an important place within parts of the ancient Jewish world, long before many later religious traditions settled the boundaries of their biblical canons. That historical reality alone explains why the book continues attracting careful study today. Its descriptions of heavenly beings, divine judgment, cosmic order, human responsibility, and future restoration provide valuable insight into ideas that influenced generations of readers during the Second Temple period. Even where scholars disagree about interpretation, they agree that Enoch remains an essential source for understanding the religious environment from which later Jewish and early Christian writings emerged. Perhaps the most enduring lesson of the book is not found in its descriptions of extraordinary visions, but in its repeated call for wisdom joined with righteousness. Again and again, the text warns that knowledge without moral character becomes dangerous, while genuine understanding begins with reverence for God. That message has echoed across centuries because every generation faces the same choice. Technology changes, empires rise and fall, languages evolve. Yet the struggle between justice and corruption, humility and pride, truth and deception remains familiar. The Book of Enoch presents those conflicts within an ancient framework, but the questions it raises continue speaking to readers willing to examine the text with patience and historical care. Rather than encouraging fear, its closing vision points toward accountability, restoration, and the certainty that injustice will not endure forever. For many readers, that hope has become the lasting reason the book continues to be preserved, translated, and discussed. It is not merely an ancient document sitting on a shelf. It is a witness to the concerns, expectations, and convictions of communities that believed history possessed meaning beyond immediate events. Whether approached from the perspective of history, theology, literature, or archaeology, the Book of Enoch remains a remarkable window into the ancient world. And perhaps that is the greatest reason it still captures attention after so many centuries. The parchment is still there, still preserving its faded lines beneath careful light, still inviting each new generation to examine the evidence for itself, exactly the way those ancient scribes intended when they first committed these words to ink and parchment, trusting that long after they were gone, someone would open the manuscript once again and continue asking the questions that have never truly disappeared.